I remember when I first started off watching anime, I tried watching it subtitled at first. It was extremely hard to follow. It takes a little while to get used to being able to sort of follow on what's on the screen and also follow the subtitles and sort of have both going on at the same time. It can be quite difficult. So that's, I guess, where the dub sort of came from, is that people really wanted to, I guess companies felt that it was more a requirement in order to be able to sell it to a much broader audience than what a subtitled only product necessarily can.
Doing the anime it's actually dubbing. It's ADR, automated dialogue replacement, or also known as looping. It's already done. Everything, the action is already set down. We are matching the mouth flaps to the frames. Whereas in other things like video games and original animation, you just go in with the script and knock it out that way, and you can have a lot of fun with it. And then a lot of times they'll animate to you, or sometimes they'll even put the motion capture things on you while you're performing, and then they will animate to all that, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, the process for dubbing as a voice actor is pretty straightforward. The original script of the Japanese version is translated into English, a direct translation, which anyone who has ever seen a direct translation knows that you can't really make heads or tails of it. It's not the way we speak conversationally. So they'll then give it to a writer who will adapt that direct translation into conversational English and will write a script that the actors will use. And upon approval, many times even from the Japanese who own the show, because they want to make sure that the integrity of their show is maintained and that the story they want to tell is told, then the studios will hold auditions and they'll cast the roles, the voice roles, and then we will come in one at a time. Unlike the Japanese who record as a group, we record one at a time in order to make sure and match the mouth flaps and the movements of the character as close as possible. And we come in and we record 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 hours at a time, depending on how many lines our character has. And we'll record 3 or 4 episodes at a time. And then a few weeks later, we'll come back and record 3 or 4 more episodes. And that's basically the way it works for us.
We do what the directors tell us. That is our main job. Somebody said once that we are sound effects, and that's kind of what we do. And that's great. I think that's very apropos.
As a director, sometimes an actor would be very set in saying a line a specific way, which would be a perfect way to say the line if that was the only line that was being said in the scene. But you have to keep in mind that there's an entire conversation of dialogue that's happening around you that you can't hear. So you have to keep that in mind as you're doing it, and maybe that line won't make sense the way you're saying it because of the way that the line is said by the previous actor. Mm-hmm. And so you really have to trust your director as an anime actor for them to know what's going on, and you're putting your faith in them that you're not going to sound stupid.
And in certain high caliber shows, there can be certain scenes that are more iconic or better known or more anticipated, and so when those come up in the dubs, as actors, we want to make sure that those are heavily respected, but also done very well, because not only are we actors, but we're fans of the shows more oftentimes than not as well. So we look forward to certain scenes more than others as often.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't know that it's going to be an iconic scene until it's made, and all the fans keep asking you to say that line over and over again. You're like, oh, I guess that was a big one.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get a good acting rhythm with the way a lot of times the character is looking a certain way, the line is read a certain way, and they don't match. And then the director wants you to read it a third way that doesn't match the other two, and that's when you're thinking, okay, I'm getting paid, I'll do whatever he says.
It's really cool to see my voice come out of anime because, again, the process was difficult, replacing what was Japanese words and the Japanese language coming out of the characters and fitting English words into it. So when you nail it and it looks perfect, which I always strive to do, and to see it come across, it's really cool. You actually don't even remember that it ever was Japanese. Yeah.
A lot of times the meaning does not fit what's there. So we have to really, you know, it's always been, whenever us actors get in there, it's already been translated, and they do it to match the mouth flaps.
There's just no way that you can possibly take Japanese and, you know, put it into English. It just won't work. I mean, there's a show, Glass Fleet, that we have that we always joke about. There's a line where the character says, "Feel my wind." I mean, what does that mean? You know, feel my wind, and you see it, and you're
I'm sure
like,
there was a reason for it.
yeah, I'm sure it means something in Japanese, but as Americans, we're like, well, can we change
but we
this? And he
still
goes,
said
no, you got to, you know, it's close to the translation as we can get. You got to say it. So you say it and sound cool, and you know, try and make something out of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, if you've got a good director and you've got the time and you've got
good writers, you're at
good
the mercy
writers,
of your writers.
yeah, you can definitely make it just as powerful a performance as anything that's original or prelay or anything like that.
Yeah.
There are some really good translators out there who are managing to include the Japanese culture but also make it understandable to Americans. Like sometimes if there's a Japanese pop culture reference, they'll replace it with an American pop culture reference in the same sort of vein. So for somebody who doesn't really know about Japanese culture, they can still relate to it in sort of a home style setting.
The actual storyline is there. I don't want to screw that up too much, because if I change the story too much in episode 1, by episode 52, I might have strayed too far. I could paint myself into a corner I can't get out of. However, I just look at what the visuals are, and I'm able to sort of write to that. And that sort of helped me, especially when all the references are Japanese originally. I just see what it looks like to me from my American sensibilities, and I go from there. So it's pretty easy for me because I've done it so much.
When they bring like an anime into, like, they dub it or they change it and put it on children's TV shows, they chop and change a lot of it to make it a lot more childish. So, like, you watch the Japanese raw and then you watch, like, the English translation on, like, Cartoon Network or something, and there's huge differences. It's just the target audience is totally different over there to over here.
I mean, if the dub is rubbish, you're not going to sit there and go, well, I'm not going to license it because the dub is rubbish. Like, that's why we put out subtitle-only versions in the first place. We don't really let the dubs, whether they exist or not, or whether the quality of them or not, really come into play. But that said, if there is a dub that exists, then it would just be, I think, foolish for us not to pursue it and try to put it out. So even if we put out something with subtitles, if eventually a dub is released, then, you know, we'll re-release it down the road with the dub.